When Good Boy 2025 hit theaters, most horror fans thought they were walking into a small, spooky haunted house film with a cute twist, a story told from the point of view of a loyal dog. But underneath the eerie growls, the flickering lights, and the slow burn dread, there's a much darker, deeper secret hiding in plain sight. What if Indy, the brave Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever who anchors the film, was never really alive at all? What if the haunting we're watching isn't a supernatural attack on his owner, but a manifestation of grief, guilt, and loss? What if Good Boy's entire story takes place in the fractured mind of a man mourning his best friend? Let's unpack the evidence that suggests Good Boy is not just about a dog protecting his human, it's about a ghost trying to save the person he left behind. The setup: a man, a dog, and a house that shouldn't exist. The movie opens with Todd returning to his late grandfather's isolated rural home. It's quiet, desolate, wrapped in the mist of old memories. He brings Indy with him, and from the first few minutes, something already feels wrong. The sound design immediately hints that we're not hearing the world as a human would. The camera hovers low, following Indy's gaze instead of Todd's. We hear distant whispers that Todd doesn't react to, soft, human-sounding breaths echoing in empty rooms. Indy tilts his head, alert, sensing what his owner can't. Most audiences read this as clever direction. See, we're experiencing the story from the dog's perspective. But look closer, and it feels more like we're watching something supernatural trying to reach the living. The world around Indy is slightly off. Reflections appear distorted. Todd sometimes walks past him without glancing down, as though unaware of his presence. If you pay attention, you'll notice Todd only physically touches Indy in 2 or 3 brief scenes. And even then, the edits are quick cuts, often showing Todd's hand descending out of frame but never making clear contact. Was that a stylistic choice, or a deliberate clue? The absence of normal life. For a movie about a man and his dog, Good Boy is strikingly empty of normal, everyday moments. We never see Todd feeding Indy, putting on his leash, or letting him outside. There's no barking at mailmen, no food bowls, no signs of actual dog care. Instead, Indy roams freely through the house, often in complete silence, moving as though he already belongs to this world of ghosts. In one eerie sequence, he scratches at the back door, desperate to be let out. Todd walks in from another room, stares at the door, and simply whispers, "Not again." The door creaks open on its own. Indy steps out into darkness. If Indy were alive, this scene would read as mundane. But the atmosphere, the absence of interaction, the ghostly lighting, the echo of Todd's voice, suggests something else. It feels like Todd is trapped in memory, reliving something that already happened. That moment, the door opening by itself, might not be supernatural at all. It could be symbolic, representing the moment Indy died, slipping away from the living world. The flashback clues: midway through the film, Todd begins having nightmares. In them, he sees a younger version of himself and Indy running through the woods. There's laughter, sunlight, the warmth of companionship, but the dream always ends abruptly, with the sound of screeching tires and a dog's pained whimper. We never see what causes the crash, only Todd waking up in cold sweat, calling Indy's name. At first, the audience assumes this was just a trauma they both survived. But look at how the film treats these sequences. Every flashback gets grainier, washed out, and shorter. It's as if the memory itself is decaying. In the penultimate nightmare, Todd wakes up alone, screaming Indy's name in the middle of an empty road. The dog never comes. Then the scene cuts back to present day, where Indy is suddenly there beside him, tail wagging, healthy and whole. That's not continuity. That's a haunting. It's the classic horror film device of reappearance without explanation, used countless times to indicate a ghost manifesting from guilt. If Indy really died in that crash, Todd's subconscious, or maybe his grief, could have summoned him back in spirit form once Todd returned to the old family home. The house as a symbol of memory. The house in Good Boy isn't just a setting, it's a metaphor. Its decaying walls, creaking floors, and flickering lights mirror Todd's mind deteriorating under grief. Every time Todd discovers a new locked door or hidden hallway, the camera follows Indy first. He's always the one to find openings, as though he's guiding Todd deeper into the truth he's refusing to face. In horror terms, this mirrors the structure of The Others or The Sixth Sense, stories about spirits unaware of their own deaths or the living haunted by guilt. When Indy digs at the basement floorboards, uncovering a buried collar identical to his own, it's not just a creepy prop. It's the moment Todd's reality starts to fracture. We see Todd's face go pale. He whispers, "How did that get here?" But Indy tilts his head in confusion, as though he doesn't understand what he's looking at either. That's the key. Ghosts in film often forget their deaths until confronted with physical evidence. The collar is Indy's tombstone, a memento of the life he no longer has. The mirror test. One of the most telling cinematic clues comes in a quiet moment halfway through the film. Todd stands in front of a mirror, brushing his teeth, talking idly to Indy, who sits by the bathroom door. When Todd leaves the frame, the camera lingers on the mirror for a second longer than it should. We see the empty bathroom, but no reflection of the dog. It's subtle. You might miss it the first time, but once you catch it, it changes everything. In ghost story tradition, mirrors have always represented truth, a way of showing what the living can't perceive. The absence of Indy's reflection isn't just a stylistic flourish. It's confirmation that he doesn't exist in the physical realm. Later, during the climactic confrontation in the attic, Todd screams, "You're not real!" We assume he's yelling at the haunting spirit. But what if he's actually yelling at Indy, or, more accurately, at his own guilt for refusing to let Indy go? The ghost's perspective, director Ben Leonberg has said in interviews that Good Boy is a film about seeing what others can't. He didn't clarify whether that referred to dogs or spirits, but it's hard not to read it as a double meaning. Throughout the movie, the camera stays low to the ground, giving us Indy's literal point of view. But that perspective could also symbolize his existence between worlds. Not quite alive, not fully dead. Notice how, whenever Todd interacts with other humans, the neighbor who checks in, the mail carrier, or the police officer in the third act, Indy is never visible to them. No one pets him, no one acknowledges him, not even a passing comment like "nice dog." For a movie that otherwise feels realistic, that's an enormous red flag. The simplest explanation? Indy's presence is entirely in Todd's head. He's a ghost, or at least a spiritual echo of Todd's grief, a protective manifestation that helps Todd face the literal and emotional demons haunting him. The final scene, a goodbye in disguise. The ending of Good Boy seals the theory. After the terrifying confrontation in the attic, Todd collapses, bleeding, surrounded by flickering lights and the echoes of his grandfather's voice. Indy lies beside him, resting his head on Todd's chest. Todd whispers, "It's okay, boy. You can rest now." The camera pans out, showing the entire house bathed in pale dawn light. For the first time in the movie, everything is quiet. The shadows are gone. We fade to black. Then, in a post-credit sequence, we see a new family moving into the house. A child runs through the hallway laughing, and for a single frame, a red-furred dog follows behind, translucent, tail wagging. It's the film's most haunting image. It confirms that Indy's spirit remains, watching over the house, not trapped, but free. That's the key twist most viewers miss. Indy wasn't saving Todd from the ghost. Indy was the ghost saving Todd from himself. Symbolism and emotional core. At its heart, Good Boy isn't really about horror. It's about loyalty. The idea that love doesn't stop at death, that even in the afterlife, our pets, our companions, might still be protecting us. By making Indy the ghost, the film transforms a simple haunted house story into an emotional fable about grief and devotion. Todd's descent into madness mirrors the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Indy's presence represents that entire emotional journey. Denial. Todd sees Indy alive, refusing to accept the accident. Anger. The haunting grows violent as Todd's guilt intensifies. Bargaining. Todd talks to the shadows, begging them to bring him back. Depression. The house darkens. Todd isolates completely. Acceptance. Todd finally says, "You can rest now," letting go of Indy's spirit. That final line isn't just dialogue. It's closure. It's Todd's way of saying goodbye, of releasing the ghost that love created. The meaning behind the title. Even the film's title, Good Boy, takes on layered meaning through this lens. On the surface, it's a simple term of affection, what every dog owner says. But in context, it becomes an epitaph. The phrase is repeated 3 times in the movie. 1. In the first act, Todd calls Indy a good boy after unpacking the car. 2. In the middle, Todd whispers it during a nightmare, voice trembling. 3. And finally, at the end, he says it one last time before Indy disappears. Each repetition carries a different tone, from casual to mournful to cathartic. The phrase becomes a spiritual mantra, the bridge between life and death. By the final use, Good Boy isn't just a compliment, it's a farewell. Hidden clues and foreshadowing. If you rewatch Good Boy with this theory in mind, small details start to pop out everywhere. Indy's collar. In one early shot, the tag is blank. No name, no number. It's as if he's already detached from identity. Lighting. Every scene with Indy features softer, cooler tones, bluish or gray hues associated with death in cinematography. Sound design. Indy's footsteps are often missing. You hear Todd's boots clearly, but Indy moves silently. Todd's dialogue. He frequently uses past tense without realizing it. You were always brave. You were the best of them. The basement scene. When Todd finds the buried collar, The background hum shifts to a low-frequency rumble, the same sound used in the crash flashbacks. No physical evidence. Not once does the film show dog food, toys, or a leash. Indy exists only in motion, never in the mundane. Together, these clues create a breadcrumb trail pointing straight to the revelation that Indy doesn't belong to the world of the living. The broader interpretation: why does this theory resonate so much? Because it touches something universal, the pain of losing a pet. Almost everyone who's loved an animal knows the strange sensation of still hearing their footsteps, still expecting them to be there. Good Boy takes that psychological reality and literalizes it, turning grief into a ghost story. That's why the film feels so haunting even when nothing overtly supernatural is happening. It's not about monsters or demons, it's about absence. Leonberg crafts horror not from what we see, but from what we can't bear to admit. The real fear isn't the ghost in the attic, it's the silence after a loved one is gone. Why this theory fits the genre. In modern horror, the ghost as memory trope has become one of the most emotionally powerful. Films like The Others, A Ghost Story, and Pet Sematary explore similar territory, the idea that spirits linger because the living can't let go. Good Boy simply flips the dynamic. The ghost is the dog, not the human. It's a fresh twist that feels both heartbreaking and inevitable. By revealing Indy as a ghost, the film elevates itself from a simple creature feature into something more poetic, a meditation on unconditional love that defies death. It's horror not because it wants to scare you, but because it forces you to confront what love costs. The emotional aftermath. If you've ever cried at the ending of Hachi, Marley and Me or I Am Legend, Good Boy hits even harder once you realize the truth. Because now every moment, every tail wag, every silent stare becomes tragic in hindsight. Indy isn't waiting for Todd to protect him. He's waiting for Todd to accept that he's gone. That's why the film ends in peace, not terror. The haunting stops because the purpose is fulfilled. The ghost has guided the living back toward acceptance. And that's what makes Good Boy linger long after the credits roll. Not the scares, not the mystery, but the love that refuses to die. So, was Indy dead the whole time? The evidence says yes. From the mirror with no reflection, to the missing physical interactions, to the buried collar, the clues build an undeniable case that Good Boy is the story of a ghost dog trying to help his owner find closure. It's not just a twist, it's the emotional heartbeat of the film. By telling the story through Indy's eyes, Leonberg invites us to experience grief from both sides of the veil, the living and the departed. It's a daring, deeply moving piece of horror cinema that proves you don't need jump scares to break hearts. So the next time you watch Good Boy, remember, sometimes the most loyal souls don't rest until the people they love finally do. Indy isn't just a good boy. He's the best boy, even in death.